The twins extend their wet hands, begging for a place in the luxury car. Ethan freezes when he notices their green eyes reflecting his own. Amara appears behind them, staring at him with a mixture of pain and defiance. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Manhattan's skyline glittered against the October evening, a spectacle of ambition and wealth visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan Blackwood's Tribeca penthouse. Amara Johnson moved with practiced grace across the Italian marble floor, setting the dining table with the Wedgwood china he preferred for special occasions. She paused, taking in the panoramic view, a vista she'd admired for nearly 2 years, yet never quite felt belonged to her. At 26, Amara had become adept at navigating the unspoken rules of her relationship with Ethan. As a rising specialist in digital marketing, she understood the value of presentation and perception. Their relationship remained a closely guarded secret, his requirement to protect his corporate image as the heir and CEO of Blackwood Enterprises, the East Coast's dominant technology and media conglomerate. She smoothed the tablecloth, adjusted the silverware one final time, and checked her reflection in the brushed steel refrigerator door. The silk blouse she'd splurged on complemented her deep brown skin, and she'd spent extra time taming her natural curls into a sleek updo. Tonight was significant. After 2 weeks of morning sickness and 3 pregnancy tests, she could no longer deny the reality growing inside her. Rain began to pelt against the windows, mirroring the nervousness drumming through her body. The clock on the wall, a minimalist design that had cost more than her first car, showed 7:30. Ethan would arrive soon, fresh from closing a billion-dollar acquisition of an artificial intelligence startup. The distinctive ping of the private elevator announced his arrival. Amara took a steadying breath and moved toward the entryway. "We did it!" Ethan's voice boomed through the apartment before he even appeared. He strode in, his 6'3" frame impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary. At 31, Ethan Blackwood embodied corporate success, sharp features, calculating green eyes, and the confident posture of someone who had never heard the word no. He brandished an expensive bottle of champagne. The board unanimously approved the acquisition. Blackwood AI will revolutionize how we monetize user data. His eyes gleamed with the particular excitement he reserved exclusively for business victories. "That's wonderful," Amara said, accepting his perfunctory kiss on her cheek. His cologne, something exclusive, custom blended in Paris, enveloped her. "I've prepared your favorite to celebrate." "Always so thoughtful," he replied, though his gaze had already drifted to his phone. 2 minutes. Need to check the Asian market's reaction to the announcement." Amara nodded, used to competing with spreadsheets and stock tickers for his attention. She poured him a glass of sparkling water. He never drank alcohol before important calls, claiming it dulled his strategic edge. While he paced near the windows, speaking rapid-fire Mandarin to investors in Hong Kong, Amara rehearsed her announcement mentally. They'd never explicitly discussed children, but surely after 2 years, the foundation they'd built was strong enough for this unexpected development. 15 minutes later, Ethan returned to the table, triumphantly opening the champagne with a practiced pop. "To Blackwood Enterprises' next billion," he toasted, filling his glass and then hers. Amara set her flute down without drinking. "Ethan, there's something important we need to discuss." His expression shifted slightly, the micro-expression of annoyance she'd learned to recognize when business was interrupted by personal matters. "Can it wait until tomorrow? I have a press conference in 3 hours and Japanese investors at 9. "It can't wait." She folded her hands to stop them from trembling. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Outside, thunder rumbled as the storm intensified. Ethan's expression transformed so completely, it was as though a different person now occupied his body. The ambitious excitement calcified into something cold and foreign. He set his champagne flute down with deliberate control. "Pregnant?" The word emerged clipped and clinical. "That wasn't in the plans, Amara. It never was." "I know it's unexpected," she began, "but I thought—" "You thought what exactly?" He straightened his Italian silk tie, his movements precise and controlled. "That we would play house? That I'd suddenly want to trade board meetings for changing diapers?" The casual cruelty of his tone made her physically recoil. "I thought we might discuss it like adults who care about each other." Ethan's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Care? Yes, of course. You've been convenient, Amara, an agreeable distraction while building my legacy." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "But a family? Children? That's for ordinary people, Amara, mediocre people. I didn't build an empire to waste it on diapers and allowances." Each word branded her like hot iron. 730 days together, and this was how he truly saw her. A convenience, a temporary distraction. He walked to his office with measured steps, returning moments later with a checkbook. "I have investors waiting and a press conference to prepare for. I don't have time for drama." "Drama?" Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Is that what you call this? Be practical." He uncapped an obscenely expensive fountain pen. "This situation has a straightforward solution." The realization of what he meant crashed over her like ice water. "You think I came to you for money to handle this?" $50,000, he said, scribbling on the check. "Enough to solve the problem and start fresh somewhere outside New York, away from me." He tore the check from the book and extended it toward her. "Understand this, Amara. You're an obstacle to my future, and children have no place in my ascension plan at Blackwood Enterprises." She stared at the check, unable to comprehend how the man she'd shared a bed with for 2 years could reduce their child to a problem requiring financial resolution. "I don't want your money," she whispered. "I just needed time for us to talk about this." His expression hardened further. "There's nothing to discuss. If you insist on this untimely pregnancy, I guarantee you'll face the best legal team on the East Coast. You signed confidentiality agreements, remember? We can easily characterize this as an extortion attempt." The threat hung between them, revealing the true power imbalance in their relationship. She'd known he was ambitious, calculating, but this coldness, this casual cruelty toward his own unborn child, showed a hollowness she'd never fully recognized before. Rain lashed against the windows with increasing fury as Amara stood on unsteady legs. "I'll leave tonight." Sensible decision. He placed the check on the table between them. "My assistant will contact you about the necessary paperwork." Tears blurred her vision as she moved robotically to the bedroom, pulling out the emergency suitcase she kept in his closet, another unspoken reminder of her provisional status in his life. She packed essentials with trembling hands, the reality of her situation becoming clearer with each item that went into the bag. When she emerged, Ethan was back on his phone, discussing market projections as though nothing had happened. The check remained on the table, an insulting solution to a human life. Against her better judgment, she took it. Not because she intended to solve the problem as he'd so callously put it, but because the sudden precariousness of her future demanded practicality. The elevator ride down felt eternal. Outside, the doorman hailed a taxi, concern evident in his eyes at her tear-streaked face and hastily packed suitcase. The rain soaked through her coat before she reached the cab. As it pulled away from the gleaming tower, Amara caught one final glimpse of the penthouse windows where Ethan would be preparing for his press conference, already forgetting the inconvenient interruption to his ascent. In the subway toward the Bronx, tears mingled with rainwater still dripping from her coat. Other passengers averted their eyes from the quietly sobbing woman clutching a suitcase to her chest. When she finally reached her small fourth-floor walk-up, the apartment she'd kept despite spending most nights at Ethan's, Amara collapsed onto her worn sofa. In the stillness of her true home, she placed a gentle hand over her still flat stomach. "We don't need him to be extraordinary," she whispered to the life within, a promise that would shape everything to come. That rainy October night, Amara couldn't possibly imagine that in 7 years she would stand face to face with Ethan again, not as a victim, but as a force that would shake the very foundations of the empire he had chosen over her. The harsh, fluorescent lights of the legal office made the document in front of Amara seem even more sterile and cold. "Voluntary termination of parental rights," read the header in imposing serif font. 3 weeks had passed since that rainy night in Ethan's penthouse, yet each day brought new evidence of how thoroughly he wanted to erase her and their child from his life. "Ms. Johnson, I need your signature on pages 3, 7, and 12, said the assistant, a perfectly polished woman in her 40s whose practiced neutrality couldn't quite mask her judgment. "Mr. Blackwood has already executed his portion of the agreement." Of course he had. Ethan Blackwood executed everything with ruthless efficiency. Amara's hand trembled as she flipped through pages of legal jargon designed to absolve him of any responsibility for the life growing inside her. The check for $50,000 sat in her bank account, untouched. She hadn't used it to solve the problem as he'd suggested, but its presence felt contaminating nonetheless. "I'll need to review these with my own attorney," Amara said, her voice steadier than she felt. The assistant's perfect eyebrows arched slightly. "Mr. Blackwood expected this would be finalized today." "Mr. Blackwood doesn't dictate my schedule anymore." Amara gathered her coat and bag, leaving the unsigned papers on the polished mahogany table. Outside, November wind cut through her inadequate jacket. She'd lost her marketing job at Crawford & Associates the previous week, a restructuring that mysteriously affected only her position. The timing left little doubt about Ethan's involvement, though proving it would be impossible. Her phone buzzed with a notification from her apartment hunting app. 3 landlords had canceled scheduled viewings in Manhattan since yesterday. The pattern was becoming unmistakable. Ethan's influence extended far beyond his corporate headquarters. Subway doors closed behind her as Amara sank into a seat, one hand instinctively moving to her still flat abdomen. Morning sickness had become her daily companion, though morning was a cruel misnomer for nausea that persisted throughout the day. At her doctor's appointment that afternoon, the technician spread cold gel across her stomach with practiced efficiency. "Ready to see your baby?" Amara nodded, eyes fixed on the grainy black-and-white screen. The technician moved the wand methodically, then paused, frowning slightly. "Is something wrong?" Amara's heart lurched. "Not wrong." The technician adjusted settings and pointed to the screen. "See this? And this over here?" Amara squinted at the indistinct shapes. "What am I looking at?" 2 separate amniotic sacs, 2 embryos. The technician smiled. "Congratulations, you're having twins." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Twins. 2 babies. Double the responsibility, double the love, double the terror of facing parenthood alone. Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks, equal parts joy and abject fear. One baby had seemed daunting enough with her precarious financial situation. 2 felt impossible. "Would you like to know the gender?" the technician asked gently. Amara nodded, unable to speak through her emotions. "Looks like one of each. A boy and a girl." That evening, alone in her Bronx apartment, Amara spread her ultrasound photos across the kitchen table. 2 tiny beings, already formed enough to identify as her son and daughter. Her children would have each other, a connection she'd never had as an only child raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs. "We'll figure this out," she whispered to the grainy images. Somehow revealed itself the following week through necessity and desperation. Amara took a receptionist position at a medical clinic in Queens, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Evenings, she worked at a call center from 6 to midnight. Weekends became dedicated to freelance design work, her marketing skills repurposed to create logos and social media graphics for small businesses. Sleep became a luxury she could afford only 4 hours per night. Her body, already changing with pregnancy, protested the punishing schedule, but her bank account gradually recovered from the sudden job loss, growing just enough to cover rent and essentials. During her 4th month, while organizing patient files at the clinic, Amara overheard 2 doctors discussing a case. The Blackwood Foundation rejected their grant application again, said the older physician, shaking his head. That family needs the specialized equipment for their daughter. Blackwood's become more selective since the new acquisitions, replied his colleague. Corporate giving is always first about the corporate, second about the giving. Amara's hands stilled on the folders. The Blackwood Foundation, Ethan's philanthropic arm, designed primarily as a tax shelter and image enhancer. The irony burned like acid. By her 6th month, Amara's pregnancy became impossible to hide. Her belly, housing 2 growing lives, stretched her thrift store maternity clothes to their limits. The call center supervisor began assigning her to less visible roles, away from any video calls with premium customers. The clinic allowed her to sit during longer shifts, but her ankles swelled painfully by day's end. You need more rest, doctor, Liu admonished during her checkup. Twin pregnancies are high risk even with optimal conditions. I can't afford more rest, Amara replied simply. The mathematics of survival left no room for such luxuries. When premature contractions began at 28 weeks, Amara initially dismissed them as Braxton Hicks, continuing her shift at the call center despite increasing discomfort. It wasn't until her water broke, suddenly and frighteningly in the employee bathroom, that she accepted the emergency unfolding. 28 weeks, twins, premature rupture of membranes, the paramedic reported into his radio as the ambulance screamed through evening traffic. Patient is conscious but experiencing strong contractions. The hospital admitted her directly to labor and delivery. Everything afterward became a blur of medical terminology, concerned faces, and fear unlike anything Amara had ever known. We need to perform an emergency C-section, the obstetrician explained. The babies are showing signs of distress. Amara, delirious with pain and fear, could only nod as they prepared her for surgery. Under harsh operating room lights, she prayed to a God she hadn't spoken to since childhood. "Baby A is out," announced the doctor after what seemed like seconds. No cry followed. "Baby B coming now." Again, silence where a newborn's wail should be. "Why aren't they crying?" Amara asked, panic rising in her throat. "They're very premature," explained a nurse beside her. "The NICU team is working with them immediately." Hours later, groggy from anesthesia and sore from surgery, Amara was wheeled to the neonatal intensive care unit. 2 incubators housed impossibly tiny beings, connected to more machines than seemed possible for such small bodies. "Your son weighs 3 pounds, 2 ounces, explained the NICU nurse. "Your daughter is smaller, 2 pounds, 14 ounces. They're both requiring breathing assistance and temperature regulation." Amara reached out, placing her hand against the clear plastic separating her from her children. "Can I touch them?" "Not yet," the nurse said gently. "But soon, if they stabilize." 3 days passed before Amara could first place her finger in her son's tiny grasp. 5 before she could hold her daughter against her chest, careful of the tubes and wires keeping the tiny girl alive. When both babies finally opened their eyes, Amara gasped. Clear, distinctive green, unmistakably like their father's, the Blackwood signature. Leon and Lila, she named them, whispering the names she'd chosen weeks earlier. Names with strength, with history, names that belonged to them, not to the Blackwood legacy their father had denied them. On the day Amara was discharged, forced to leave her babies behind in the NICU, a hospital administrator appeared with a folder thick with papers. "We need to discuss financial arrangements," the woman said, her tone professionally sympathetic. "Your insurance covers only a portion of the NICU care, which will likely continue for several more weeks." The numbers on the forms blurred before Amara's eyes. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical care growing daily. Each machine, each specialist, each life-saving intervention adding to a sum far beyond anything she could imagine paying. Standing before the incubators that evening, watching her children fight for every breath, Amara placed her hands against the clear plastic walls separating them. "One day he will see what he threw away," she whispered fiercely. "Not for revenge, but because you deserve an extraordinary future. And I will build it, even if I have to remake the world with my own hands." While Amara made this promise in the sterile quiet of the NICU, she couldn't have known that in 7 years she would be forced to confront Ethan Blackwood again, not as a victim, but as a force that would shake the foundations of the empire he had chosen over his own children. The hospital discharged Leon and Lila after 63 grueling days in the NICU. Amara carried them home to her Bronx apartment one at a time, their combined weight still less than a typical newborn. Their fragility terrified her, each breath a victory, each ounce gained a triumph against overwhelming odds. "Welcome home," she whispered, placing them in the second-hand bassinet wedged between her bed and the wall. The apartment felt smaller than ever, but somehow more complete with their presence. Sleep became a distant memory. The twins required feeding every 2 hours, medications administered on strict schedules, and constant vigilance for signs of the respiratory issues that had plagued their early weeks. Amara learned to function on 90-minute intervals of rest, her body perpetually aching with exhaustion. Her careful financial planning crumbled within weeks. The hospital bills arrived with alarming frequency, each statement more devastating than the last. Even with payment plans stretching into decades, the monthly minimum consumed nearly half her income. Formula specially formulated for premature infants cost 3 times the standard price. The portable oxygen monitor Leon occasionally required wasn't covered by her basic insurance. By the time the twins reached 6 months old, Amara had developed a precise system for stretching every dollar. Sunday evenings were dedicated to scouring newspapers for double coupon offers. Tuesday mornings before work, she visited 3 different grocery stores to capitalize on each location's bargains. Clothes came exclusively from church donation centers and neighborhood swaps. "Look at these, perfect for when they start crawling," Mrs. Rodriguez from the 5th floor said, offering a bag of gently used baby clothes. "My grandson outgrew them last month," Amara accepted with genuine gratitude. The neighborhood had become her unofficial support network. Elderly neighbors who watched the twins during overlapping job shifts, fellow mothers who shared hand-me-downs, the bodega owner who occasionally slipped extra baby food into her bags by mistake. When Leon and Lila turned 1, their developmental milestones diverged in ways that both delighted and concerned Amara. Leon, though smaller than average, showed remarkable focus. He stacked blocks methodically while other children his age scattered them. Lila, with perpetually curious eyes, demonstrated incredible visual recognition, pointing to specific images in books before she could even speak. "They're quite advanced for their adjusted age," noted the pediatrician during their checkup, especially considering their difficult start. Pride swelled within Amara, tempered immediately by practical concerns about nurturing their potential on her limited resources. The library became their second home, free, educational, and mercifully climate-controlled during summer months when her apartment became stifling. On a rainy Saturday morning, while sheltering in the library's children's section, Amara noticed Leon methodically arranging numbered foam blocks in perfect sequential order. At just 2 years old, he recognized numbers 1 through 20 without hesitation. "He's doing simple addition in his head," the children's librarian remarked, watching with astonishment as Leon demonstrated that 2 blocks plus 3 blocks equaled 5. "I've never seen a 2-year-old do that." Across the colorful reading rug, Lila sat surrounded by picture books, pointing to specific illustrations and naming colors with uncanny precision. "Blue-green," she said definitively, distinguishing between shades most toddlers would simply call blue. The librarian knelt beside Amara. Have you considered testing them for the gifted program? The city has resources for exceptional children, even at this young age. That evening, researching gifted programs on her aging laptop, Amara stumbled across a financial news article about Ethan Blackwood's latest acquisition, a boutique artificial intelligence firm purchased for $3 billion. The accompanying photo showed him at a charity gala, a willowy blonde on his arm. His posture radiated confidence and success, his expression unchanged from when Amara had known him. She closed the browser tab with a decisive click. His world no longer intersected with hers. When the twins turned 3, Amara scraped together enough money to enroll them in a community center preschool program 3 mornings a week. The cost strained her budget beyond reason, but their rapid development demanded more stimulation than she could provide alone. Leon organized our entire number system today, the preschool teacher reported, equal parts impressed and bewildered, and Lila's drawings show spatial awareness well beyond her years. On weekends, Amara took them to free museum days, library story times, and park outings. In each setting, strangers commented on their striking green eyes, the unmistakable Blackwood trait that Amara saw every morning across the breakfast table. Late one night, after picking up extra graphic design work to cover an unexpected dental bill for Leon, Amara spotted a magazine left in the office break room. Ethan's face stared back from the cover of Business Insider, Rising Titan, How Ethan Blackwood Transformed Media Consumption. With trembling fingers, she flipped to the feature article, scanning for any mention of family or personal life. A single paragraph mentioned his famously private personal world and dedication to his work above all else. His choice to reject fatherhood remained his most closely guarded secret. That night, looking at her sleeping children, Amara updated the makeshift vision board she kept inside her closet door. Out of sight, but never out of mind. Next to apartment with separate bedrooms by 2019 and full-time design position by 2020, she added a new goal: independent design business by 2021. "This doesn't define us," she whispered to the sleeping twins, echoing the mantra that had sustained her through countless moments of doubt. By their 4th birthday, Leon and Lila had become Amara's most enthusiastic cheerleaders as she built her freelance design business during precious evening hours. Leon organized her colored markers by spectrum and opacity. Lila offered earnest critiques of logo designs with startling perceptiveness. "More yellow," Lila would insist, pointing to a draft logo for a local bakery. "Happy bread needs yellow." "Numbers wrong," Leon would note seriously when Amara miscalculated a client invoice. Their apartment walls became galleries for their artwork, Lila's increasingly sophisticated drawings and Leon's precisely plotted number patterns. Their intelligence flourished despite their circumstances, perhaps even because of them. Necessity had taught all 3 Johnson family members resourcefulness beyond measure. The call came on an ordinary Tuesday when the twins were 5. Amara was between clients at the marketing agency where she'd finally secured a full-time position with health benefits. "Ms. Johnson, this is Director Phillips from Horizons Elementary. We've received your application for the twins, but there seems to be some confusion. Their test scores can't be correct." Amara's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "Leon scored in the 99th percentile for mathematical reasoning, at a 3rd grade level, and Lila's spatial visual scores are off the charts. We'd like to retest them in person." The retest confirmed what Amara already knew. Her children were exceptional by any standard. Horizons Elementary offered them spots in their advanced program with partial financial aid, though the remaining tuition still required Amara to take weekend design jobs to afford. Watching them board the school bus in their carefully ironed uniforms, Amara felt a complex emotion she couldn't name, pride entangled with vindication. Ethan had dismissed the idea of fatherhood as a distraction from his ambitions, yet these remarkable children were building their own extraordinary futures without a penny of his billions. One evening, Helping the twins with homework at their small kitchen table, Amara glanced up at a news segment playing on their second-hand television. Ethan Blackwood stood at a podium, announcing the Blackwood Foundation's new initiative supporting educational technology for underprivileged schools. "Because every child deserves the tools to build an extraordinary future," he stated with practiced sincerity. Lila looked up from her drawing. "Who's that man, Mommy?" Amara switched off the television. "No one important to us, sweetheart." Later that night, updating her vision board yet again, Amara added a final goal: own design agency by 2023. While Amara pinned this ambitious dream to her closet door, she couldn't know that across town, decisions were being made at Blackwood Enterprises that would eventually bring her face to face with the man who had once deemed her and their children obstacles to his ascension. Across town, the board members of Blackwood Enterprises raised their champagne flutes to toast their latest acquisition, a promising virtual reality startup that would expand their digital entertainment division. Amara Johnson couldn't have been further from their minds as she tucked her 5-year-old twins into bed, unaware that in less than a year, a global catastrophe would obliterate the fragile stability she had painstakingly constructed. The first rumblings of trouble came in February of 2020. Whispers of a strange virus spreading overseas appeared in news reports, dismissed by most as a distant concern. By mid-March, the whispers had become screams. New York City shut down with brutal suddenness. "We regret to inform you that due to the unprecedented economic impact of COVID-19, Crawford Digital Marketing will be implementing immediate staff reductions." The voice of the HR director on the video call was sympathetic but resolute. "Your position is among those being eliminated." Amara sat frozen before her laptop screen, surrounded by 30 other equally stunned faces in their respective Zoom boxes. 3 years of 60-hour weeks, pitch-perfect campaigns, and reliable results, all ending in a 3-minute announcement followed by instructions to schedule an exit interview. "Your final paycheck will include 2 weeks severance. Company laptops should be returned via courier by Friday." The call ended abruptly, leaving Amara staring at her reflection in the black screen. Behind her, Leon and Lila sat at the kitchen table with their school tablets, attempting to navigate first-grade remote learning on equipment barely adequate for the task. "Mommy?" Leon's voice pulled her back to the present. "Is my microphone working? Ms. Patterson can't hear me again." Amara swallowed the panic rising in her throat and forced a smile. "Let me check, sweetheart." That night, after the twins had finally fallen asleep on their shared pull-out sofa bed, Amara opened her laptop and faced the brutal arithmetic of survival. Their small Harlem apartment, secured after they could no longer afford the Bronx, cost $1,400 monthly. Health insurance through COBRA would be $600. Utilities, food, internet essential for the children's schooling. The numbers stacked relentlessly against her dwindling savings. She allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to cry, silent tears that wouldn't wake the twins, before opening a fresh spreadsheet. Columns for essential expenses, potential income sources, and assets that could be sold in emergency. The math was merciless. Without immediate income, they had approximately 8 weeks before financial collapse. The next morning, Amara transformed their kitchen table into an improvised studio. Her laptop, now her most valuable possession, perched on a stack of books. Her phone, propped against a mug, served as a secondary camera for product shots. A bedsheet thumbtacked to the wall created a neutral background. "What are you making, Mommy?" Lila asked, watching Amara arrange their small living space. "I'm building something new," Amara replied, more conviction in her voice than she felt. "Something that will help us." While the twins navigated online classes in the bedroom corner, Amara compiled a portfolio of her strongest design work and sent emails to every small business she had ever encountered. Her pitch was simple. As shops closed their physical locations, a strong online presence had become essential for survival. She could provide that lifeline at rates far below market value. 3 days passed without response. On the 4th morning, her phone pinged with an email from Gloria's Bakery, a local institution struggling to transition from walk-in business to delivery model. "We need help putting our menu online fast," wrote Gloria. "My grandson says we need social media presence, whatever that means. Can you help? Budget is tight." Amara's hands trembled as she typed her response. The fee Gloria could afford barely covered 3 days of groceries, but it was a start. And more importantly, it would give Amara something concrete to reference when approaching other businesses. The days blurred together. Amara worked through nights while the twins slept, designing websites, creating social media templates, and photographing products for neighborhood businesses fighting to survive. She mastered the art of functioning on 4 hours of fragmented sleep, fueled by discount store coffee and the absolute necessity of keeping her family afloat. "Mommy, your eyes are red again," Leon observed one morning, his analytical mind missing nothing. "Just working hard, my genius," she replied, ruffling his hair. The twins adapted to their new reality with remarkable resilience. Leon organized their remote learning schedule with color-coded precision unusual for a 6-year-old. Lila transformed their mandatory indoor time into creative opportunities, covering every available surface with increasingly sophisticated drawings. One evening, while helping Leon with an advanced math worksheet, Amara noticed a business news segment playing on their second-hand television. Ethan Blackwood's face filled the screen, his expression serious yet satisfied as he discussed Blackwood Enterprises' soaring stock prices. "Our investment in remote work infrastructure and telemedicine platforms positioned us perfectly for this unfortunate global situation," he explained to the interviewer. "While we couldn't have predicted the pandemic, we were prepared to capitalize on the digital transformation it accelerated." The camera pulled back to reveal Ethan sitting in what appeared to be a home office, though the home portion was clearly a multi-million-dollar residence with panoramic views of Central Park. His cashmere sweater probably cost more than Amara's entire wardrobe. "Mr. Blackwood, your personal net worth has reportedly doubled since March. Do you feel any ethical concerns about profiting during such widespread suffering?" Ethan's practiced smile revealed nothing. "The Blackwood Foundation has committed $50 million to COVID relief efforts. We believe in prospering with purpose." Amara switched off the television, a familiar hollowness expanding in her chest. While she calculated whether to pay the electric bill or buy groceries, the father of her children had added billions to his fortune. By June, the financial situation had become dire. Despite working 18-hour days, Amara's freelance income covered barely 70% of their essential expenses. The first late rent notice appeared under their door, a warning shot across an already sinking ship. On a sweltering Wednesday evening, while the twins completed their final school assignments before summer break, Amara sat on their small bathroom floor, credit card statements spread around her like fallen leaves. The balances had climbed steadily as she charged groceries, utilities, and the twins' medications when cash ran out. A knock at the bathroom door startled her. "Mommy, come see what I made," Lila called. Amara quickly gathered the bills, plastered on a smile, and opened the door. "What is it, sweetheart?" Lila proudly displayed a detailed drawing, a logo for AJ Designs, surrounded by stylized computer screens, paintbrushes, and happy faces. The lettering showed remarkable sophistication for a child her age. "It's for your business," Lila explained. "Leon helped with the colors. He says blue makes people trust you." Amara knelt beside her daughter, examining the artwork. The composition was intuitive, the color balance instinctively correct. Even the typography showed natural talent that most adult designers struggled to develop. "This is extraordinary," Amara whispered, a realization dawning as she studied her daughter's creation. That night, after the twins were asleep, Amara stared at Lila's drawing pinned to the refrigerator. An idea began to form, not just a stopgap measure, but a potential path forward. If she could combine her marketing experience with Lila's natural design talent and Leon's organizational abilities, perhaps they could offer something unique to struggling businesses. Family-created, emotionally resonant branding packages for a new economic reality. The next morning, Amara created a simple website, AJ Designs, Soluções Visuais for the New Normal. The homepage featured Lila's logo prominently, along with a simple message, family-powered design solutions for businesses navigating uncertain times. Her first client came through Gloria's Bakery, a florist friend who needed to transition from wedding-focused business to everyday arrangements. The florist could only afford $300, but Amara accepted without hesitation. That night, the three Johnsons gathered around their kitchen table-turned-studio. Lila carefully colored the hand-drawn elements for the florist's new logo. Leon organized the project timeline with colored sticky notes. Amara integrated their contributions into a cohesive digital package. When the first payment arrived in her account, Amara used it to buy groceries, pay a portion of the overdue electric bill, and purchase a small set of professional colored pencils for Lila, her first real art supplies. As she updated her goals board that evening, crossing out Survive 2020 and writing Rebuild in 2021, Amara couldn't have known that her small idea born from desperation would become, in just 3 years, the catalyst for the confrontation that would permanently change her life and Ethan's. Amara fell asleep over her keyboard, the glow of the screen illuminating her exhausted face. Lila's drawing, now the official logo for AJ Designs, was pinned to the wall beside her improvised desk. The family's small business had survived its first 6 months, a victory measured in paid bills and avoided evictions rather than profit margins. By the spring of 2021, AJ Designs had developed a modest but loyal clientele. Neighborhood shops appreciated Amara's ability to translate their personalities into digital presence, often commenting that her designs captured emotional elements other agencies missed. This wasn't surprising. Amara worked with these business owners' children, shared their pandemic struggles, understood their fears and hopes in ways downtown agencies couldn't. "Your invoice for the website redesign," Amara said, sliding a folder across the counter at Morales Hardware. The family-owned store had been a neighborhood fixture for 3 decades but had nearly closed during the pandemic until online ordering saved them. Mr. Morales glanced at the amount, then back at Amara. "This seems low for all the work you did." "It's what we agreed on," Amara replied with a professional smile that concealed her awareness that the fee would barely cover next week's groceries. "Well, we've seen a 30% increase in orders since the site went live." He reached beneath the counter and added 3 $20 bills to his payment. "Consider this performance-based compensation." Amara accepted with genuine gratitude. Every extra dollar stretched their precarious stability a little further. That evening, while the twins completed homework at their kitchen table, Amara updated her client spreadsheet. 16 completed projects in the last quarter, a sustainable pace that allowed her to be present for Leon and Lila while keeping them afloat financially. Not thriving, perhaps, but surviving with dignity. The sudden pounding on their apartment door shattered the quiet routine. "Ms. Johnson?" The building superintendent's voice carried through the thin door. "Need to speak with you." Amara opened the door to find Mr. Guzman shifting uncomfortably, avoiding her eyes. "The building's been sold," he said without preamble. "New owners taking over next month." "Okay," Amara replied cautiously. "Will there be changes to maintenance procedures?" Mr. Guzman's continued avoidance of eye contact answered before his words did. "They're adjusting all the rents. Your new lease would be 60% higher." The floor seemed to tilt beneath Amara's feet. 60%? That's not an adjustment. That's an eviction notice. "I'm sorry." He genuinely seemed to be. "They're positioning the property in the emerging market. Corporate speak for pushing out current tenants." That night, after the twins were asleep, Amara researched rental listings with increasing desperation. Nothing within her price range appeared in neighborhoods safe enough for the children or close enough to their school. Expanding her search revealed the same pattern across Harlem, the Bronx, even parts of Queens. Rents had skyrocketed during the pandemic recovery, pricing out families like hers. 2 weeks later, with no viable housing options and their move-out date approaching, Amara faced her most difficult conversation with the twins yet. "We need to talk about something important," she began, sitting them down on the sofa. At 7 years old, they were perceptive enough to recognize the gravity in her voice. "Is it about the new people buying our building?" Leon asked. Of course he'd noticed the surveyors, the clipboard-carrying investors touring hallways. Amara nodded, choosing honesty over protection. "We can't afford to stay here with the new rent, and I haven't found another apartment we can afford right now." "Where will we go?" Lila's voice was small but steady. "There's a place called Family Haven." Amara had rehearsed this explanation repeatedly, searching for words that wouldn't frighten them. "It's a temporary shelter for families between homes. We'll stay there while I find us a new apartment." Leon's analytical mind immediately sought parameters. "How long is temporary?" "I don't know exactly," Amara admitted, "but I promise it won't be forever." They arrived at Family Haven with 4 suitcases containing their essential belongings. The rest, furniture, kitchen items, books, went into a small storage unit Amara had scraped together money to rent for 3 months. The shelter occupied a former hotel in Washington Heights, converted during the pandemic to house displaced families. Their assigned room held 2 sets of bunk beds, a small table with chairs, and a bathroom with inconsistent hot water. The communal kitchen on each floor served as both dining area and inevitable social center. "Top or bottom bunk?" Amara asked, attempting to frame their situation as an adventure rather than a crisis. The twins adapted with resilience that both inspired and broke Amara's heart. Leon created a schedule for bathroom and kitchen usage to maximize efficiency. Lila decorated their section of wall with drawings that transformed their institutional surroundings into something resembling home. Maintaining AJ designs proved challenging without reliable internet or dedicated workspace. Amara woke at 4 each morning to use the shelter's computer lab before other residents needed it, racing to complete client work before the twins awoke. She transported her design files on a flash drive between the shelter and public libraries, catching Wi-Fi where she could. Despite these efforts, clients began to drift away. Without a professional address or reliable communication channels, AJ designs appeared unstable. By their 3rd week at Family Haven, Amara's income had dropped by 40%. "Resource fair today in the multi-purpose room," announced a staff member, sliding flyers under doors one Wednesday morning. "Representatives from housing assistance, job placement, and community organizations will be available." Amara had attended similar events before, well-meaning but often offering services she didn't qualify for or with wait lists stretching into years. Still, she couldn't afford to ignore any potential opportunity. The multi-purpose room buzzed with conversations as residents moved between tables staffed by various organizations. Amara methodically worked her way through each station, collecting brochures and information while the twins participated in a supervised children's activity in the corner. "You look like you could use this more than the pamphlet," said a woman at the last table, offering a cup of decent coffee. Her name tag read, "Carmen Rodriguez, Williams Foundation." "Thank you," Amara accepted gratefully. "What does the Williams Foundation do?" "We're a private foundation focusing on family stability through housing and economic empowerment," Carmen explained. "Our transitional housing program includes business development support for parents with entrepreneurial skills." Amara's exhaustion-dulled mind took a moment to process. "Business development?" Carmen nodded, gesturing to Amara's folder of collected materials. "May I?" She flipped through Amara's portfolio samples and business cards. "AJ Designs? You're a small business owner?" "Trying to be," Amara admitted. "It's challenging without stable housing or reliable internet." That's exactly the catch-22 our program addresses. Carmen pulled out an application. We provide transitional apartments with built-in workspaces, business mentoring, and stability while families build sustainable income. 3 days later, Amara sat across from Carmen and 2 other foundation representatives in a formal assessment interview. Your situation is precisely what our program was designed to address, explained the program director after reviewing Amara's application. A parent with marketable skills and entrepreneurial potential, temporarily derailed by housing instability. 1 week later, Amara unlocked the door to their apartment in the Williams Foundation's transitional housing complex in Washington Heights. Sunlight streamed through windows far larger than any they'd had before. 2 bedrooms, one for the twins, one for her. A living room with a designated office area, clean, safe, and nearly twice the size of their previous home. "Is this all ours?" Lila whispered, eyes wide as she explored the space. Leon opened the door to the children's bedroom, freezing in the doorway. "Mommy, there are desks. 2 desks!" His voice cracked with emotion at the simple furniture most children took for granted. That evening, after the twins had claimed their spaces and fallen asleep in beds of their own for the first time in their lives, Amara sat at her new desk. A real desk, not a kitchen table doubling as workspace. Her Williams Foundation mentor had already scheduled their first business development session for the following day. Her phone dinged with an email from the Foundation's technology support program. She had been approved for a new laptop, essential software, and high-speed internet connection, tools that would transform AJ Designs from struggling to competitive. Tears blurred her vision as she opened her goals notebook. With trembling fingers, she crossed out "apartment with separate bedrooms" and wrote beside it, "Achieved." As Amara hung her new business development certificate on the wall, she didn't know that across town, Ethan Blackwood was preparing to launch a philanthropic project that would place them on a collision course much sooner than either could have anticipated. Hanging her new business development certificate on the wall felt like planting a flag on conquered territory. For the first time since the twins' birth, Amara allowed herself to believe in possibilities beyond mere survival. The Williams Foundation Transitional Housing provided more than shelter. It offered the framework for rebuilding she had desperately needed. Spring blossomed into summer of 2022, and with it, AJ Designs flowered into something resembling stability. The Foundation's mentorship program paired Amara with Joanna Winters, a retired marketing executive who approached Amara's business with the same analytical precision she had once applied to Fortune 500 campaigns. "Your pricing structure is unsustainable," Joanna declared during their second session, reviewing Amara's client spreadsheets. "You're charging neighborhood rates for professional-grade work." Amara shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "My clients can't afford agency prices." "Some can't," Joanna agreed, "but others absolutely can and would. You're leaving money on the table out of misplaced guilt." She circled several business names on Amara's client list. "These 3 have multiple locations and healthy profit margins. Double your rate for their next projects." The strategy worked. To Amara's surprise, none of the clients balked at the increased fees. One even commented that her previous rates had made them question her expertise, as they were suspiciously low for the quality delivered. By autumn, Amara had transformed the dedicated office nook in their apartment into a proper studio. The Foundation provided equipment grants that allowed her to purchase a professional-grade monitor, design tablet, and proper lighting setup. Her makeshift desk was replaced by an ergonomic workstation where she could create for hours without her shoulders knotting into painful knots. "Is this all ours now?" Leon asked one evening, carefully arranging color-coded project folders in the new filing cabinet. "It is," Amara confirmed, watching her son's methodical organization system with pride. At 8 years old, his ability to create order from chaos remained his superpower. Across the room, Lila sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching character concepts for a children's bookstore website. Her drawings had evolved from merely precocious to genuinely marketable, with a distinctive style that combined whimsy and technical precision unusual for a child her age. "Mrs. Winters says we should register a proper business entity," Amara mentioned, watching her children work. "Make AJ Designs official." "LLC or S-Corp?" Leon asked without looking up from his folders. Amara laughed, though she shouldn't have been surprised. Leon absorbed financial terminology like other children memorized cartoon character names. "We're looking at LLC options next week." "I think we need business cards," Lila added, already sketching possible designs. By December, AJ Designs had graduated from Amara's side hustle to their family's primary income source. The official registration papers arrived just before Christmas, a gift more meaningful than any toy or gadget. Amara framed the LLC certificate alongside her Williams Foundation mentorship certificate, tangible proof of their upward trajectory. The twins thrived in their new environment. With their own desks, reliable internet, and a safe neighborhood, their academic performance soared at the public gifted program where they'd been enrolled since September. Leon's mathematical abilities continued to outpace his age group, while Lila's artistic talents gained recognition beyond their immediate circle. "Ms. Johnson, may I speak with you after the presentation?" asked Ms. Harrison, the school's art teacher, during the winter showcase in February of 2023. The teacher led Amara to a display of student artwork where Lila's piece, a sophisticated mixed-media cityscape, had been given central placement. "This level of perspective understanding and compositional balance is extraordinary," Ms. Harrison explained, gesturing to the detailed work. "I've taught for 20 years and rarely seen this kind of intuitive grasp in someone twice Lila's age." Similar conversations with Leon's math teacher followed, punctuated by recommendations for specialized summer programs and advanced placement testing. The twins' potential seemed to expand with each opportunity, like plants finally receiving adequate sunlight after years in partial shade. Winter melted into spring, and with it came unexpected growth for AJ Designs. A boutique in Chelsea that Amara had designed a website for recommended her services to the owner of a small chain of wellness studios. That client connected her with an emerging jewelry designer who needed complete branding. By March, Amara had hired her first contractor, a part-time virtual assistant to handle client communications while she focused on creative work. "We need to upgrade your website," Joanna advised during their monthly mentoring session. "Your portfolio has outgrown your digital presence." The website renovation transformed AJ Creative Solutions, the business's newly expanded name, from a bootstrap operation into a boutique agency with distinct service tiers and professional presentation. Amara's client roster steadily shifted from neighborhood businesses to established brands seeking the personal touch that larger agencies couldn't provide. One morning in early May, Amara opened her laptop to find an email from the Williams Foundation's educational coordinator. "Annual Community Talent Showcase, Saturday, May 20th. All resident families encouraged to participate." "What do you think?" Amara asked the twins over breakfast. "Would you want to show your work at the talent showcase?" Leon methodically spread peanut butter to the exact edges of his toast. "Will there be judges with mathematical backgrounds? My fractal project needs knowledgeable evaluation." Lila looked up from her sketchbook. "Can I display my portfolio? Not just one piece?" The day of the showcase transformed the Foundation's community center into a vibrant exhibition of resilience and talent. Families from various transitional housing programs displayed everything from culinary creations to engineering projects. The twins' table, split between Leon's mathematical visualizations and Lila's art portfolio, quickly drew a crowd. "Who taught you this shading technique?" asked a silver-haired man examining Lila's detailed illustrations. "Nobody taught me," Lila replied with the simple confidence of a child who hadn't yet learned to diminish her talents. "I watched shadow patterns and figured it out." The man introduced himself as Professor David Chen from New York University's Art Education Department. "I also direct the Young Creators Initiative for Gifted Visual Artists," he added, handing Amara his card. "Your daughter has extraordinary spatial intelligence and technical execution." Simultaneously, at the other end of the table, Leon was deep in conversation with a mathematics assessment specialist, explaining his approach to geometric problem-solving with the precision of someone 3 times his age. That evening, Amara sat at her desk with 2 business cards in hand, one from Professor Chen, another from Dr. Williams of the Metropolitan Academy for Mathematical Excellence. Both had expressed interest in evaluating the twins for specialized programs. 2 weeks later, Amara sat across from the admissions director at Stevenson Academy for Exceptional Learners, one of New York's most prestigious schools for gifted children. The tuition figures made her palms sweat, but she maintained her professional composure. "Based on their assessment results, we would like to offer both Leon and Lila placement for the fall semester," the director explained. "We can provide partial scholarships based on their exceptional scores, though there would still be a significant remaining balance." Amara nodded, mentally calculating how many additional clients she would need to afford even the reduced tuition. "The twins would need equipment not covered by the scholarship as well, correct?" "Yes. Our STEM lab requires specific materials for advanced students, and our arts program has supply requirements." That night, after inputting the anticipated expenses into her budget spreadsheet, Amara faced the uncomfortable reality that even with AJ Creative Solutions' growth, the combined costs remained just beyond her reach. The following morning, scanning news while the twins prepared for school, a headline caught Amara's attention. "Blackwood Foundation announces major educational initiative for underprivileged youth." The accompanying photo showed Ethan Blackwood, older, with distinguished gray at his temples, standing before a podium emblazoned with the foundation's logo. "The annual benefit gala will distribute educational vouchers to qualifying families," the article explained. "These vouchers cover supplementary educational expenses not typically included in scholarship programs." Amara's finger hovered over the registration link. The irony burned like acid, seeking assistance from the foundation created by the man who had abandoned his own children. Yet the practical reality remained. The vouchers would bridge the exact gap in the twins' educational needs. "What are you looking at?" Leon asked, peering over her shoulder. Amara closed the browser tab. "Just researching options for your school supplies." That evening, after the twins were asleep, Amara reopened the article and registered their family for the Blackwood Foundation benefit. In the reason for attendance field, she wrote simply, "Educational vouchers for gifted twins requiring specialized equipment." As she closed her laptop, Amara couldn't possibly know that her pragmatic decision to attend the event solely to secure educational assistance for her children would trigger a confrontation that would shake the corporate world of Manhattan and forever alter the power dynamic between herself and Ethan. Amara stared at the confirmation email from the Blackwood Foundation benefit, her finger lingering over the delete button before finally closing her laptop. The decision was made, not out of vindictiveness or a desire for confrontation, but from the simple calculus of a mother determined to secure her children's future. The morning of the gala arrived with unseasonable warmth for mid-May. Amara stood before the modest collection of clothes hanging in her closet, considering her options. After careful deliberation, she selected a navy blue blazer purchased from a consignment store last year for job interviews, paired with her only pair of dress pants, meticulously maintained black slacks she'd owned since her marketing days. "Leon, Lila, time to get dressed," she called, laying out their best outfits on their beds. The twins emerged from the bathroom, hair still damp from their showers. At 8 years old, they had developed a striking resemblance to their father that sometimes caught Amara off guard. The distinctive green eyes, the determined set of their jaws, the analytical gaze that seemed to absorb everything. "Is this a fancy party?" Lila asked, examining the simple blue dress Amara had purchased on clearance 3 months ago. "Very fancy," Amara confirmed, helping her daughter with the buttons. "There will be important people there who might help with your new school." Leon straightened his clip-on bow tie with scientific precision. Will there be other kids like us? The question carried layers of meaning Amara couldn't fully address. There will be other families who need help with school expenses, she answered carefully. The subway ride to the Metropolitan Museum of Art felt interminable. Seated between her children, Amara noted the curious glances from other passengers, a family clearly dressed in their absolute best, yet still noticeably underdressed by Manhattan standards. The twins sat with perfect posture, hands folded in their laps, oblivious to the subtle social markers that distinguished them from the privileged children they would soon encounter. They emerged from the subway into light rainfall. By the time they climbed the museum steps, the drizzle had intensified, dampening their carefully pressed clothes. A line of black town cars and luxury SUVs discharged passengers under the protective cover of uniformed doormen holding umbrellas. This way, please. A staff member directed them to a separate entrance where a cluster of similarly dressed families waited. The contrast was immediate and stark, designer gowns and bespoke suits entering through the grand front doors, while families in their Sunday best were guided to a side entrance marked Community Beneficiaries. Inside, the museum's grand hall had been transformed into a glittering reception space. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across marble floors. Waitstaff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres among guests who wore wealth as comfortably as their evening clothes. Beneficiary families, please follow me to the designated seating area, announced another staff member, leading Amara and the twins to a section of chairs positioned at a noticeable distance from the main gathering. Why are we sitting separately? Leon whispered, his analytical mind immediately identifying the social stratification. It's just how they organized the space, Amara replied, squeezing his hand reassuringly. The atmosphere in their section carried a distinct undercurrent of discomfort. Families trying to maintain dignity while being visibly segregated from the donors whose generosity they were meant to appreciate. Children in carefully maintained but visibly worn clothes sat uncomfortably still, coached on proper behavior in spaces not designed to welcome them. At precisely 7:30, the lights dimmed slightly, and a spotlight illuminated the podium. Ethan Blackwood strode onto the stage with the confident bearing of a man who had never questioned his right to occupy any space. Amara's breath caught in her throat. 8 years had passed since she'd seen him in person. Television appearances and magazine photos hadn't captured the subtle changes, distinguished gray at his temples, fine lines around his eyes that somehow enhanced rather than diminished his appearance. His Tom Ford tuxedo fit his frame with the precision only bespoke tailoring could achieve. Distinguished guests, partners, and beneficiary families, Ethan began, his voice carrying the practiced warmth of a man who had mastered the art of appearing sincere. Welcome to the Blackwood Foundation's annual Education Initiative Gala. As he spoke about creating pathways to success for underprivileged youth and leveling the educational playing field, Amara studied the man who had dismissed his own children as obstacles to his ambition. His gestures were more refined now, his speech patterns more measured, the rough edges of ruthless ambition polished into the smooth veneer of philanthropic concern. Each child deserves a chance to shine, regardless of their origin, he proclaimed, arms outstretched as cameras flashed, capturing the perfect image of compassionate wealth. The twins listened with rapt attention, unaware they were watching their biological father perform his carefully crafted role. Leon leaned forward, analyzing the economic principles Ethan discussed, while Lila sketched the scene in her small notebook, capturing with uncanny accuracy the contrast between the glittering elite and the beneficiary families seated apart. When the formal presentation concluded, staff directed the main guests toward an adjoining gallery for a private reception, while instructing beneficiary families to remain seated until the voucher distribution process began. "How much longer, Mommy?" Lila whispered, her initial excitement waning after 2 hours of speeches and presentations. "Not much longer," Amara promised, though uncertainty tinged her voice. The administrators seemed in no hurry to distribute the vouchers that had brought them there. Another half-hour passed before a Foundation representative approached their section. "Voucher distribution will begin shortly. Please form a line at the east entrance." Outside, the earlier drizzle had transformed into a steady downpour. Lightning flashed across the Manhattan skyline as beneficiary families huddled under the inadequate shelter of the museum's side marquee. Museum staff propped doors open, creating a makeshift line that extended partly into the rain. "Stay close," Amara instructed the twins, positioning herself to block the worst of the wind-driven moisture from reaching them. Leon's dress shoes, purchased from a discount store and already a size too small, darkened with water as the line inched forward. Lila wrapped her cardigan tighter, the thin material providing little protection against the unseasonable chill. "I'm cold," Lila whispered, pressing against Amara's side. A commotion at the front entrance drew their attention. The private reception was concluding, and VIP guests emerged under a canopy of black umbrellas held by attentive staff. Luxury vehicles pulled forward in precisely timed intervals. "Look at those cars," Leon said, his natural curiosity momentarily overriding his discomfort. Before Amara could respond, both twins had slipped from her side, drawn by the procession of wealth departing into the stormy night. "Leon! Lila!" Amara called, but her voice was lost in the rumble of thunder and pounding rain. She pushed forward, trying to keep sight of their small forms weaving through the crowd. A sleek black limousine pulled directly to the front of the line. The uniformed driver emerged with an oversized umbrella, circling to the passenger door with practiced efficiency. The door opened to reveal Ethan Blackwood, surrounded by a small entourage of executives, all immaculately preserved despite the weather. Horror filled Amara as she saw the twins approach the limousine, drawn by its imposing presence. They reached the vehicle just as Ethan prepared to enter. "Excuse me," Leon said, his clear voice carrying through the rainfall. "Could we stand under your umbrella too?" Ethan turned automatically, the reflexive dismissal of an unexpected interruption already forming on his lips. Then he looked down, and time seemed to suspend itself. His gaze met the twins', identical green eyes staring back at him with innocent curiosity. "Our shoes are all wet," Lila explained politely, gesturing to their soaked footwear. "And Mommy says we need to protect them because we don't have others for school." Ethan froze, his expression shifting from polite dismissal to shock as he registered the familiar features reflected in these children's faces: his own distinctive eye color, the characteristic Blackwood jawline, the same questioning tilt of the head he saw in mirror reflections. His associates watched with growing discomfort as their CEO stood motionless in the rain, staring at two bedraggled children as though seeing ghosts. "Leon! Lila!" Amara's voice cut through the downpour as she pushed forward, reaching for her children. When she looked up, her eyes locked with Ethan's. Recognition flashed across his face. "Amara," he whispered, the name barely audible beneath the drumming rain. Photographers, lingering to capture departing celebrities, swiveled their cameras toward this unexpected tableau. The famous CEO suddenly immobilized by the appearance of an unknown woman and two children. "Recognize your own eyes, Ethan? Or was your conscience sacrificed along with your empire?" Amara's voice carried a quiet dignity that belied her rain-soaked appearance and worn clothes. The twins, sensing the sudden tension, retreated to their mother's side, confusion evident on their faces. "What's happening here?" asked one of Ethan's directors, glancing between his suddenly pale CEO and the unfamiliar woman. "Nothing," Ethan attempted to recover his composure. "Just a misunderstanding. Let's move on." "Misunderstanding?" Amara's voice gained strength. "Is that how you classify abandoning your own children while promoting yourself as the savior of New York's children?" A profound silence descended despite the continuing rainfall. Camera flashes intensified, capturing every nuance of the unfolding scene. "Mommy, who is this man?" Leon asked, his perceptive mind already forming connections from the fragments before him. In that frozen moment beneath the torrential rain, with camera flashes illuminating their faces, the past and present collided, but none of those present could predict how the confrontation that would follow would transform not only Amara and Ethan's lives, but also the fate of a business empire built on appearances. The photographer's flashes illuminated the scene like lightning, freezing the moment in stark clarity. Ethan Blackwood stood paralyzed, his expression a complex mixture of shock, recognition, and dawning horror as he stared at the two children before him. The pristine umbrella in his driver's hand tilted, allowing rain to soak through his $1,000 suit. "I asked who this man is, Mommy," Leon repeated, his analytical gaze shifting between his mother's tense face and the stranger's ashen one. Ethan took an instinctive step forward. These children." His voice faltered as he studied their features more closely. The unmistakable Blackwood green eyes, the characteristic shape of their brows, the distinctive angle of their jawlines. His own face, reflected in miniature, stared back at him with innocent curiosity. "Sir, we need to move along. The press is watching," murmured his chief of staff, eyeing the growing crowd of photographers and curious onlookers sheltering under the marquee. Ethan seemed not to hear him. "Amara?" he said again, her name emerging as a question this time. "These are your children," Amara finished, her voice steady despite the rain streaming down her face. "The obstacles to your ascension that you chose to erase from your life." The twins looked up at their mother in confusion, then back at the stranger who suddenly seemed unable to look away from them. "I think there's been some confusion," Ethan managed, attempting to regain his composure as he became aware of the growing audience. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." A photographer edged closer, capturing rapid-fire shots of the tense tableau. Another pulled out a phone, recording video of the unexpected confrontation. "Children, come here," Amara said, drawing Leon and Lila closer to her sides, their small bodies pressed against her rain-soaked blazer. Lila looked up at Ethan with innocent directness. "Your car is very nice. We just wanted to stay dry because our shoes are getting ruined." She glanced down at her second-hand Mary Jane's, now thoroughly soaked. Something in Ethan's expression cracked at her words. He stared at the little girl's wet shoes, then at the carefully mended sleeve of Leon's jacket, visible details of a life lived in careful economies he had never experienced. "Ms. Johnson, is it?" One of Ethan's executives stepped forward, his tone suggesting he was accustomed to handling uncomfortable situations. "I don't know what your connection to Mr. Blackwood might be, but this is hardly the appropriate venue for personal matters." "Personal matters?" Amara's laugh held no humor. "Is that what we're calling it now?" The growing crowd of onlookers had begun to recognize Ethan, phones emerging to capture the unusual scene. Some of the other beneficiary families waiting for vouchers had edged closer, sensing the sudden power shift in the air. "What's happening here?" asked another executive, his discomfort evident as he glanced between his CEO and the bedraggled woman confronting him. Ethan attempted to regain control. "Nothing of consequence, a misunderstanding that can be resolved later." He turned toward the waiting limousine. "Let's proceed with our schedule." "Nothing of consequence?" Amara's voice cut through the rainfall. "Is that how you've rationalized it all these years? Your own children were nothing of consequence?" The word children rippled through the gathering crowd. A reporter who had been covering the gala pushed forward. "Mr. Blackwood, would you care to comment on these allegations?" Leon, ever observant, tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mommy, why does that man have our eyes?" The simple question, voiced in a child's clear tones, carried across the momentary hush. Ethan flinched visibly, as though the words had physical weight. "Let's talk privately," he said, no longer a suggestion but a plea. "Please, Amara, not here." "Privacy was your requirement 8 years ago, Ethan." Amara's voice remained remarkably steady. Our relationship needed to remain secret to protect your precious corporate image. Now you want privacy again? When it's convenient for you?" Camera flashes intensified. A social media live stream had begun from someone in the crowd, the counter showing rapidly increasing viewers. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to discuss this like rational adults." Rational adults? The words struck Amara as darkly comedic. "Like when you called my pregnancy a problem to be solved, or when you had your lawyers pressure me into signing away your parental responsibilities." His associates exchanged alarmed glances. The Blackwood Foundation had built its reputation on family-centered philanthropy, with Ethan positioned as its compassionate figurehead. "Podemos conversar en particular? Por favor." Ethan switched to Portuguese, a language they had sometimes spoken together during their relationship, a desperate attempt to create privacy in the public spectacle. "No há nada privado aqui," Amara responded in the same language before switching back to English. "You chose to make your false generosity a public spectacle. Now face the consequences of your choices in front of the same people who applaud your philanthropy." The twins watched this exchange with growing confusion. Lila pressed closer to her mother's side while Leon's expression reflected intense concentration as he processed the unfolding scene. Ethan's public relations director stepped forward, handing him a business card. Desperation evident in his movements, Ethan offered it to Amara. "My assistant will contact you tomorrow. We can resolve this civilized. I'm certain we can reach an agreement beneficial to everyone involved." "An agreement?" Amara laughed, a bitter sound that echoed against the museum's stone facade. "Like the check you offered me to solve the problem? Your own children went hungry while you donated millions to build your public image." The crowd had grown substantially now, many filming with cell phones while Ethan's associates tried unsuccessfully to disperse the curious onlookers. Behind them, other beneficiary families watched with undisguised interest as one of their own confronted the evening's celebrated philanthropist. "We can discuss the past later," Ethan insisted, extending his gold business card toward her. "Let me help you now. All of you." "We don't want your belated money," Amara replied, keeping her children close. "We want you to face the consequences of your choices." "Mommy," Leon whispered, loud enough for those nearby to hear, "is this man our father?" The simple question hung in the rain-soaked air. Ethan's face drained of remaining color as he stared at the boy who had asked the question with such uncompromising directness, a trait he himself was known for in boardrooms. "Your mother and I knew each other a long time ago," Ethan managed, crouching slightly to address Leon directly. His voice gentled in a way his associates had never heard before. "We have things to discuss." "You said children were for ordinary people," Amara reminded him, her voice carrying despite its quietness. "Mediocre people. That you didn't build an empire to waste it on diapers and allowances." His own words from 8 years ago struck Ethan like physical blows. He straightened, aware of the cameras still capturing every moment of his discomfort. "Things change," he said simply. "People change." "Yes, they do," Amara agreed. "I changed. I became stronger than I ever thought possible. These children, your children, have grown extraordinary despite your absence. Not because of your money, but despite the lack of it." With a final look of contempt, she turned away, guiding the twins through the parting crowd. "Come on, Leon, Lila. We've seen enough." Ethan remained frozen in place, the gold business card still extended uselessly in his hand as cameras continued to flash around him. For the first time in his carefully managed career, he appeared completely at a loss, watching Amara and the children disappear into the rainy night. His expression of desolation, the first crack in his carefully constructed facade of the exemplary benefactor, was captured by dozens of cameras, immortalizing the moment when Ethan Blackwood's past had finally caught up with him. While Amara led the twins away from the scene, She couldn't have known that the next days would transform that confrontation in the rain into the greatest crisis of Ethan Blackwood's career, and the definitive turning point in her own story. Raindrops pelted the windows of the taxi as Amara guided the twins into the back seat, their small bodies still trembling from the confrontation. Leon's analytical mind was already piecing together the puzzle while Lila pressed against her mother's side, seeking warmth and reassurance. Behind them, camera flashes continued to illuminate Ethan's frozen silhouette on the museum steps. "Was that man really our father?" Leon asked as the taxi pulled away, his voice remarkably steady for an 8-year-old processing such a revelation. Amara drew both children closer. "Yes, we'll talk about everything when we get home." That night, after carefully explaining as much as their young minds could process, Amara sat alone at her kitchen table, the magnitude of what had transpired washing over her. Her phone buzzed relentlessly with notifications, missed calls from unknown numbers, email alerts, social media mentions multiplying by the minute. She silenced the device and closed her eyes, the momentary quiet allowing her to center herself before the inevitable storm. Morning arrived with a vengeance. Sunlight had barely broken through the window blinds when Amara's phone began ringing again. This time, the caller ID displayed Williams Foundation. Her stomach tightened with anxiety as she answered. "Ms. Johnson, this is Director Patricia Williams." The voice carried a carefully neutral tone that Amara couldn't interpret. "I believe we need to speak in person about last night's incident. Could you come to the Foundation at 10? Amara arrived at the Foundation's offices prepared for the worst: eviction from their transitional housing, revocation of support services, polite but firm suggestions that her situation had become too complicated for their program. She had already started mentally cataloging emergency options, determined that whatever came next, her children would not suffer for her confrontation with Ethan. The director's office was minimalist but warm, with photographs of smiling families lining the walls, success stories from the Foundation's programs. Patricia Williams, a composed woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and penetrating eyes, gestured for Amara to take a seat. "I imagine you've seen this morning's headlines," she said without preamble, sliding a tablet across the desk. The New York Times digital front page displayed a striking image of Ethan's shocked face juxtaposed with Amara and the twins in the rain. The headline read, "Filantropo Bilionario Confrontado by Alleged Abandoned Family at Benefit Event." Amara skimmed additional headlines. "CEO Humanitarian of the Year accused of abandoning own children." Washington Post. "The man who donates millions to needy children while his own slept in shelters." Forbes. Social media hashtags #Blackwood hypocrite and #Practice what you preach trended nationwide. "I didn't plan for this to happen," Amara began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We attended solely for the educational vouchers." Director Williams studied her face carefully. "I believe you. But now that it has happened, we need to discuss next steps." Amara braced herself for the dismissal she felt certain was coming. "The Williams Foundation exists precisely to support families like yours, those demonstrating extraordinary resilience in the face of abandonment and adversity." The director's expression softened. "Your children's test scores have been on my desk for weeks. Their talent is remarkable." Confused by this unexpected turn, Amara remained silent. "We would like to offer Leon and Lila full scholarships to the Stevenson Academy for Exceptional Learners," Director Williams continued, "including all supplementary materials and required technology. Additionally, we're approving your application for our permanent housing program, effective immediately." Disbelief washed over Amara. "I don't understand. After last night, I thought—" "Last night confirmed exactly why our foundation exists, Ms. Johnson." The director's smile held genuine warmth. "Your strength as a mother, facing such adversities while nurturing your children's exceptional abilities, represents the very values we promote. While Amara signed the scholarship and housing papers with trembling hands across Manhattan, the empire Ethan had built was experiencing seismic tremors. Emergency meetings filled the Blackwood Enterprises executive calendar as stock prices dropped 8% within the first trading hours. Corporate partners who had eagerly associated their brands with the Blackwood Foundation's Family First messaging began issuing carefully worded statements distancing themselves from the controversy. In the Blackwood Tower's top-floor conference room, PR strategists, legal counsel, and executive leadership engaged in heated debate, while Ethan sat uncharacteristically silent at the head of the table, his eyes fixed on the tablet before him displaying endless variations of the same story. "We need to issue an immediate statement denying paternity," insisted the legal counsel. "Request DNA testing, suggest extortion motives." "DNA testing would backfire spectacularly," countered the PR director. "Those children are unmistakably Blackwoods. The public sees it. Our shareholders see it." "Then we acknowledge but contextualize," another executive suggested. "Frame it as a youthful indiscretion, a relationship that ended before he knew about the pregnancy. Except we've already received 3 media inquiries from people who worked at Crawford and Associates when Ms. Johnson was mysteriously let go shortly after their relationship ended," the communications director interjected. "They're connecting dots, finding patterns of isolation that suggest deliberate erasure rather than ignorance." Throughout the debate, Ethan remained silent, his usual commanding presence diminished by the haunting image of 2 small children with his eyes, wearing second-hand clothes in the rain while he sheltered under a chauffeur's umbrella. "Contact her," he finally said, his voice cutting through the argumentative din. "Whatever it takes, whatever she wants." His desperation to control the narrative manifested in increasingly frantic attempts to reach Amara. When his assistant finally secured her phone number through Foundation contacts, Ethan isolated himself in his office for the call. "Amara, we need to resolve this immediately," he stated without greeting when she answered. "I'm prepared to make a generous settlement. Name your price." Her laugh, hollow and tired, caught him off guard. "Still thinking in terms of transactions, Ethan? Some things don't have a price. Like the first steps you missed, the fever nights I faced alone, the birthdays when they asked why they didn't have a father like other children. I can compensate for all that now," he insisted, desperation edging into his typically controlled voice. "I want to know them, to be part of their lives." "You never understood, did you?" Amara's voice carried no anger, only weariness. "It was never about money. It was about respect, dignity, commitment, things you've clearly never valued." The conversation ended with no resolution, leaving Ethan more agitated than before. His carefully constructed public persona, cultivated through years of strategic philanthropy and media training, was unraveling with each passing hour. 3 days after the confrontation, surveillance cameras captured Ethan arriving at the Williams Foundation building, an extravagant bouquet in one hand and designer shopping bags in the other. His face, now familiar to millions through viral videos of the museum confrontation, appeared haggard from the ongoing crisis. The foundation receptionist directed him to a small conference room where Amara waited alone, her posture straight and composed despite the emotional turbulence of facing him again. "5 minutes," she stated as he entered. "That's all I'm willing to give." Ethan placed the gifts on the table between them, unwrapped boxes from prestigious toy stores and boutiques. "These are for Leon and Lila. I'd like to give them personally." "Number." The single word carried quiet authority. "Please, Amara. I just want them to know I'm sorry," he pleaded, his usual commanding presence diminished by genuine desperation. Amara studied the man before her, the perfect tailoring of his suit contrasting with the uncharacteristic dishevelment of his appearance. "You're not sorry about abandoning them," she observed. "You're sorry you got caught." "That's not fair." "Fair?" The word hung between them. Was it fair to threaten me with legal action if I kept my pregnancy? Was it fair to ensure I lost my job? Was it fair that your children spent their first years in poverty while you collected houses and trophies? Ethan's shoulders slumped. You're punishing me. No, Amara replied with a serenity that visibly unsettled him. I'm simply living the life I built without you. A life where you aren't needed, not as a villain, not as a savior. She stood, gathering her bag. When they're older, if they want to know you, I won't stand in their way, but I won't use my children as instruments to alleviate your belated guilt. In the weeks that followed, as the media storm continued unabated, Amara declined all paid interview offers and book contract proposals about the scandal. Instead, she accepted a part-time position in the Williams Foundation's marketing department, where her digital expertise would help other families facing situations similar to what she had endured. The last time Ethan saw Amara was accidentally 6 months later through the window of a coffee shop in downtown Manhattan. She sat surrounded by colleagues, laughing with an ease he had never witnessed during their relationship. Her phone displayed photos of the twins in school uniforms, proudly exhibiting medals from an academic competition. He watched for several minutes before turning away, carrying the weight of a belated understanding. Amara didn't need his redemption, his fortune, or his presence. She had transformed abandonment into strength, building a complete life he couldn't purchase with all his empire, a life rich in dignity, purpose, and unconditional love. As Ethan Blackwood walked away from the coffee shop window, rain began to fall, a gentle drizzle unlike the torrential downpour that had framed their confrontation 6 months earlier. The weather seemed to mock him with its symmetry, water once again marking a significant moment between them, though this time she remained unaware of his presence. 6 months had transformed everything. The Blackwood Foundation, once his pride and carefully crafted public image vehicle, had removed his name from its leadership board. Corporate sponsors had demanded his retreat from public-facing roles. The company's stock had eventually stabilized, but his personal reputation remained in tatters. None of that compared to the hollow feeling that expanded in his chest as he watched Amara through the window, laughing, unburdened, complete without him. The realization that she had built something he couldn't buy struck deeper than any financial loss or public humiliation. Inside that warm cafe, unaware of her observer, Amara showed her colleagues photos of Leon and Lila at their first semester awards ceremony at Stevenson Academy. The twins had thrived beyond all expectations, with Leon receiving the highest mathematics achievement award in the school's history for a first-year student, while Lila's artwork had been selected for display in the Young Artists exhibition at a respected Manhattan gallery. They've adjusted remarkably well, she explained to Carmen from the Williams Foundation, scrolling through images of the twins in their academy uniforms. The school says they've never seen children integrate so seamlessly into such an advanced curriculum mid-year. That's not surprising, Carmen replied. They've clearly inherited your resilience. Amara smiled, though privately she recognized the twins had inherited traits from both parents, her determination certainly, but also Ethan's analytical mind and unwavering focus. She had made peace with this reality. Acknowledging their genetic connection to Ethan didn't diminish the life she had built for them. The Williams Foundation's marketing department had proven to be exactly the professional environment Amara needed. Her role as digital outreach coordinator allowed her to leverage her design skills while maintaining regular hours that accommodated the twins' school schedule. More importantly, her work directly helped families navigating circumstances similar to what she had once faced alone. 3 weeks after that unnoticed coffee shop encounter, Amara sat across from the Foundation's executive director in a quarterly performance review. Your redesign of our outreach materials has increased application rates by 38%, Director Williams noted, reviewing the statistics. More importantly, the testimonial campaign you developed has attracted 5 new corporate sponsors. The authenticity resonates with donors, Amara explained. Real stories create emotional connection that generic appeals can't match. Speaking of authentic stories, the director said carefully, Blackwood Enterprises has made another approach. Their new CEO would like to establish a significant endowment for our educational programs. Amara's expression remained neutral. The foundation should accept. Their money will help families regardless of corporate motivation. We wanted to ensure you'd be comfortable with the arrangement given your history. My personal history with Ethan Blackwood doesn't outweigh the good that funding could do, Amara replied with the practical clarity that had guided her through years of challenging decisions. Besides, I understand he's no longer involved in day-to-day operations. Indeed, Ethan had retreated from public view following the scandal. Reports indicated he had sold his Manhattan penthouse and relocated to his Connecticut estate, making rare appearances at board meetings but otherwise removing himself from the corporate spotlight he once craved. The permanent apartment provided through the Williams Foundation's housing program had become a true home for Amara and the twins. Located in a well-maintained building in Washington Heights, the three-bedroom unit offered stability they had never known. Each child had their own bedroom, customized to their interests. Leon's walls covered with mathematical diagrams and scientific posters, Lila's transformed into a gallery of her evolving artistic style. One evening in late November, as winter settled over the city, Amara helped the twins prepare for their school's winter showcase. Leon methodically explained his mathematical visualization project, while Lila arranged her portfolio with the seriousness of a professional artist twice her age. "Mom, will you help me practice my presentation again?" Leon asked, adjusting his glasses with the same precision his father once employed when reviewing acquisition documents. "Of course," Amara replied, though her attention was momentarily caught by the evening news playing on their television. A business update featured a brief segment on Blackwood Enterprises' restructuring. The camera panned across the company's board members at their annual meeting, briefly showing Ethan in the background. Noticeably thinner, his once immaculate appearance now merely adequate, his characteristic commanding presence diminished. Lila glanced at the screen. "That's him, isn't it? Our biological father?" Amara had never hidden the truth from the twins, answering their questions honestly but without bitterness as they arose. "Yes, that's him." "He looks sad," Lila observed with the emotional intelligence that characterized her artistic sensibility. "Sometimes people who seem to have everything discover they've missed what really matters," Amara explained, turning off the television. "Now, let's focus on your presentations." The morning of the winter showcase arrived with a light snowfall that transformed the city into a glittering wonderland. The prestigious Stevenson Academy welcomed parents into its historic building where student projects filled the exhibition hall. Amara moved between her children's displays with quiet pride, watching as Leon confidently explained fractal mathematics to impressed faculty, while Lila guided visitors through her artistic process with natural poise. "Ms. Johnson?" A familiar voice interrupted her observations. Amara turned to find Joanna Winters, her business mentor from the Williams Foundation program. "What a wonderful surprise. I didn't know you'd be here." "I serve on the Academy's Business Advisory Board," Joanna explained, "but I came specifically today after seeing the participant list. I wanted to witness your children's success firsthand." As they walked between exhibits, Joanna mentioned casually, "I've been approached about consulting for Blackwood Enterprises' rebranding efforts." "And you're concerned about my reaction?" Amara guessed. "Professional courtesy," Joanna confirmed, "given our mentoring relationship." Amara considered this briefly before responding. "His business decisions and my life are separate entities now. They've been separate for years, though he's only recently realized it." Later that afternoon, celebrating the twins' successful presentations over hot chocolate at their favorite cafe, Amara noticed Leon studying her with uncharacteristic hesitation. "What's on your mind, mathematician?" she asked gently. "My science teacher says genetic inheritance influences cognitive abilities," he began carefully. "My mathematical aptitude and Lila's artistic talent, they might come partially from him, correct?" "Yes," Amara acknowledged. "You've inherited qualities from both of us." "Then shouldn't we—" Leon struggled to articulate his complex thoughts. "For scientific understanding, shouldn't we know more about him?" Amara had prepared for this moment, knowing her brilliant children would eventually approach the subject with their characteristic curiosity. "When you're older, if you want to know him, that will be your choice. I'll support whatever you decide." "But you won't arrange it now," Lila stated, not questioning but understanding. "No," Amara confirmed. "Some relationships need maturity and perspective that comes with age. For now, focus on becoming your best selves." The twins accepted this with the remarkable composure that had characterized their response to every challenge life had presented. Their resilience, perhaps their greatest inherited trait, manifested not as hardness, but as extraordinary adaptability. Spring arrived with new possibilities. AJ Creative Solutions, which Amara still maintained as a selective side business, received an invitation to bid on rebranding a prominent women's empowerment nonprofit. The twins continued excelling academically, with discussions of advanced placement options for the following academic year. One surprisingly warm April evening, Amara sat on their apartment balcony, reviewing design concepts while the twins completed homework inside. Her phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. "Turn on Channel 4 now." The news showed Ethan Blackwood announcing his resignation from Blackwood Enterprises board. "To pursue personal priorities and private philanthropic interests," he stated to reporters, his expression reflecting a humility entirely absent from the man Amara had known years ago. Watching him walk away from the empire he once claimed was worth any sacrifice, Amara felt no vindication or triumph, only the quiet acknowledgement that some lessons come at immeasurable cost. In the silence of her new home, while the twins slept peacefully, Amara understood that her true victory wasn't in confronting Ethan or in the material stability she'd finally achieved, but in the certainty that she had transformed the most painful rejection of her life into the strength that built not just a career, but a legacy of dignity her children would carry forever, a power no corporate empire could match. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.